Hello everyone, Richard Tromans here again at Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're talking to Emily Fodges, who is the head of Deloitte's Legal Managed Services arm. She moved there recently from well-known company Luminance, and she's only been there for about 3 months, and she'll actually be going into the office for the first time this week. Is that right, Emily?
Thursday. I'm
Wow,
unreasonably excited about it. I
well,
still don't have
what
a pass or anything.
really? Oh no, I guess you know because you
No.
haven't been there physically. Well, look,
No.
thank you very much for being on the show. I thought the audience would find it very interesting to learn a little bit more about what Deloitte is doing on the legal managed services arm side. Maybe just as a beginner, could you just explain what does that actually mean? I mean, it's a term that is used broadly. What does it actually mean, and what does Deloitte mean by legal managed services?
In our case, what it means is outsourcing part of your legal team to Deloitte. We have lawyers who will provide an extension to your legal team. And much more than just providing resources, they will also bring with them technology, management information, the ability to understand the data that's going through your legal team, introduce operational improvements on a continuous basis, flex the resources up and down in line with demand. And the reasons that all of those things are possible are, first of all, we have access to all the best technology on the market, and we're technology agnostic. So we can look at that particular client's needs. We can then adopt the technology on their behalf on their own contracts and work with their contracts day to day and prove the concept for them before rolling it out to them. We can lighten the load on that legal team so that we'll take on the day-to-day routine contract management for them so that their lawyers can focus on the complexity and the strategic issues facing the business, which are really the reasons why they went into in-house legal. And we can do that because our team are lawyers and they're in-house lawyers. They're ex-GCs, they've worked in-house in big corporations, and we have a commercial model that incentivizes them to have the same priorities as the in-house legal team. So their priority will be getting the best value out of legal spend, right the way across the whole legal ecosystem. So not just the work that we do and not just the work that the in-house team does, but all of the different elements of the legal ecosystem, bringing those together. And secondly, protecting the business from risk. Those are the two things that they care about. Then don't care about how many hours they do, how many days they do, how many resources we put on it. Those things are all irrelevant. It's just about the same priorities as the legal team.
No, absolutely. And could you just give me a couple of examples? I mean, what would be a classic example of a project that Deloitte LMS would do?
I can. So we won our first client recently, and I can't tell you who it is, but if I
Mhm.
describe the project for you, it's pretty much exactly what we want to be doing. So this is a FTSE 100 manufacturing organization.
Mhm.
They obviously do a lot of contracting as an organization, and there are a lot of contracts which are to do with their production, their factories, their supplies and all the rest of it. What we're going to do is take on the management of all of the non-production spend, so everything that's non-core for them, because that at the moment isn't getting enough attention. And it's not something that their lawyers need to spend time on. They just need to make sure it's taken care of. So we're going to take all of that on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a portal that we put in place for them through which all of the legal requests will pass so that we can start to analyze them and see the patterns in the data and understand what the volumes look like, but also things like negotiation patterns. So how often are the same red lines coming back on the same template, so that we can then come back with a proposal and say, what, if we simplify these terms, or if we adopt a different negotiating position as a starting point, that's going to really reduce your time to contract. So why don't we do that and see the time to contract come down and the revenue realization go up?
But what kind of contracts are these that you're, I mean, very, very generally, I mean, what kind of contracts are you handling for them?
So it could be anything.
Anything?
In this case, it's mainly procurement.
Right.
But it could be procurement, it could be employment, it could be real estate. It could be anything.
And so you, for these, you're effectively managing the contracting process from document creation or just handling other people's paper that's coming in, or
Um,
or everything.
both. So so most of our time will be spent on negotiation, review, and remediation. That's the kind of core of the activities that would go on, because we're lawyers and all of our lawyers are regulated in the right jurisdiction, because this is a pan-European proposition.
Right.
That means that they don't need to work to a playbook. So the management overhead for the legal team of working with us is massively reduced. We would work based on a negotiation mandate and apply our legal judgment based on the laws of the relevant jurisdiction. So we're very much an extension of the legal team, operating very much as the senior lawyers on the team would be operating with the same goals in mind.
So the LMS team will be a mix of we might say regulated lawyers plus people who are not lawyers by trade, but could still help with this process, or are they all going to be
Ultimately, yes, but our focus initially is very much on regulated lawyers.
okay? And so and as you said, this service will be for the whole of Europe,
Yeah, Europe and the Middle East.
okay?
Yeah.
But not America. But we'll come to that in a moment. So at the moment, how long? I know that you've only just got started, so readers, listeners should be aware you've only just got started on this. But roughly, how large is the team now?
See, every single journalist I've spoken to has asked this. So we're a relatively core team at the moment because during lockdown there was a firm-wide hiring freeze. So we're now ramping up. So we had new starters yesterday. We'll have more new starters next week. Should be hitting critical mass by the end of this year, which will be, put it this way, we've got our first client signed up. We start work with them next week. We've got a delivery team lined up to work on that first engagement, plus more people to work on all of the opportunities that are coming through the pipeline. And we'll be adding more people as those pipeline opportunities turn into work. So the sky's the limit in terms of how big we'll get.
Mm.
But really at the moment we've got enough people to manage that first engagement, deliver the pipeline, and keep building. And they're coming in on a weekly basis through the next couple of months.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And where are they based? I mean, I guess everyone's working remotely, but is the mothership London or is the mothership somewhere else?
That's the fantastic. I know there aren't many fantastic things about lockdown, but
Mm,
that really genuinely that has been a fantastic thing about lockdown.
mm, mm,
That they are in Manchester, they are in Liverpool, they are in Birmingham, they are in Europe. So I'm working with the Deloitte legal teams in Norway and in Switzerland and in Italy, and it doesn't make any difference where you are, apart from time zones. We're all on a level playing field. So I'm obviously based in London. One other member of the team is based in London. Everybody else is in different places. And we were actually having these discussions earlier about the return to the office, which is now starting. Which office are you going to go to? And in some cases, it may be that there's never any need.
mm, mm. So yeah, so you don't have to you don't have to buy a new building in Birmingham or Newcastle or wherever to do this thing.
No. I mean, there's obviously, I think what's going to be really interesting as we come out of lockdown and businesses start to figure out how they operate. And, I was talking to somebody who wants to work with us this morning, and they were talking about the fact that they've had three buildings, which they've now reduced down to 2 buildings without reducing headcount. What does that mean for the future? And that GC said to me, so when we get up and running with you, will your team come and work here on site, or will they be based at your offices? And I went, well, ideally, yes, they'd come and work with you, but you're at home now and not planning to go back to the office anytime soon. So,
Mm.
it's really kind of, that kind of flexible working is a reality, isn't it, for all of us?
No, indeed. I mean, I think particularly for what you're doing, on the LMS side, it makes perfect sense, really. I mean, after
Yeah,
all, what you don't need all those people together, really. I guess if you had a massive deal, and it was like an M&A deal, and you were doing the due diligence for a client, perhaps, which
maybe.
wouldn't necessarily happen anyway. But if you did, I can see the reason to get everyone very intensely together to work
Yeah.
through at very, very high speed. But generally, you probably don't need to.
We're doing some due diligence at the moment as a team. Um, and everyone's at home, and I was sort of I was on a call with somebody earlier, and they're on Skype saying, right, I finished with that document, it's over to you. It feels like you're working together, doesn't it? I think there's probably a culture point that as we start to hire more junior resources, I think people coming out of college need somewhere to go to work, don't they?
The recent hires,
Hmm.
which were just reported and Artificial Lawyer wrote about as well, um, they were sort of highlighted as being part of the consulting side. I mean, how does that is that actually part of the LMS or is that a completely separate group that will work with you?
Yeah. Think about Deloitte Legal as a triangle.
Mm,
And at the heart of the triangle is technology. So
mm,
our CTO, Bruce, who I think you know quite well, and Laura Bygraves and all of that team, that's at the heart of the triangle. Then the 3 points of the triangle are advisory, which is lawyers providing advice like a traditional law firm.
Mm,
Legal managed services, which is lawyers providing an extension to the in-house legal team, and
mm.
then legal management consulting. So but we work really closely together. And what's really nice is, we're pitching together, we're talking to clients together. The first client that we've won actually is a combination of advisory and legal managed services. The fact that the two came as a package was very appealing because we work really closely together. And the same will be true with management consulting as well, that where we're looking at, we can outsource this part of your operations, but the consulting team can work with you to identify the best way of solving some other issues in the business. Yeah, it's nice to be part of a team like that, so many interesting people on it.
Yeah, yeah, no, the synergies definitely help. Well, let's dig into this a little bit more then. So, I mean, how do you bill the clients of this? I mean, are you billing them by the hour? I mean, how does LMS work? If I was
Yeah,
a client and I'm thinking, okay, that sounds interesting. How do I pay you for this?
yeah. We don't want to bill by the hour,
Mm,
because the whole point of what we do is driving operational effectiveness into the whole of your legal ecosystem. So we want to be incentivized to make it as efficient as possible. So to begin with, we'll charge probably on volumes. So probably on the kind of the volumes of contracts that we're negotiating, reviewing, remediating on your behalf. In fact, in the first case, we've had enough data already to make some assumptions about that. So to charge a fixed price for the initial engagement, but then it'd be good to move more towards a kind of subscription model so that GCs have real confidence about how much they're going to be spending,
mm.
but also have the benefits of the flexibility of being able to flex the team up and down in line with the peaks and troughs in demand, without incurring a different bill at the end of the month for having done that.
So you could have something a little bit like a unit price, which is something I sort of covered earlier. I mean, if you've got the data and you've got a subscription model, it becomes a bit like a phone contract.
I think how corporations consume legal services is changing dramatically, isn't it? And actually, I think that need for more predictability in how in what it costs, and that kind of customer intimate model where we'll come in and get under the skin of your business and really understand it, so that we can get on with the work in the same way that your senior lawyers will. I mean, I was telling someone earlier, I was interviewing a candidate just the other day who talked really passionately about things like IP for Velcro. She's a lawyer, but every organization that she's ever worked for, she's looked at that business and understood it and figured out how she can help and how she can make things easier. And those are the kind of people that we're hiring
Mm.
right the way through. And you get those, and you get access to those people without having to think every time, maybe, how much is this costing me every time I ask them a question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's a subject very close to my heart, which is getting rid of the billable hour.
Mm.
Let's look at some other challenges or opportunities, I guess. The market for legal managed services or process focused legal work, or whatever you want to call it, is certainly increasing. There's certainly more participants in that market space. You've got people like Elevate who've been around for a long time, United Lex and others.
Mm.
Uh, there's yourselves, there's PwC, EY with their acquisitions. It's getting a quite crowded space, which in some ways is good because a
Mm-hmm.
busy, vibrant market actually might generate new clients. Building a market brings people in sometimes. So, I mean, on that point, I mean, how will Deloitte stand out and how will you carve out some market share here?
So this absolutely can't be a race to the bottom. This is the heart and soul of a corporation that we're talking about, their
Mm.
contracts. So the way we'll stand out is by providing lawyers who care about your business, who'll work alongside you, become a true extension of your team, giving you the flexibility that you get through outsourcing, giving you the predictability that you get through our commercial model, and operating all the time in a way that continually improves the way that the legal team operates. So, I think when I look at in-house legal teams and their ability to adopt technology, they're just too busy most of the time to go out and figure out how to do it and figure out what they need and what the best fit is and all the rest of it. We can do that on their behalf. And we can do it in a very real way where we're working day by day with their contracts and prove the concept for them and introduce it gradually. We want to optimize the whole legal ecosystem. So in a lot of cases, there'll be legal work that the lawyers are getting caught up in day to day that could be done through self-service. The procurement teams could be doing that work themselves within the right guardrails. We can set up those guardrails. We can build the playbook or create the template or whatever it is so that those teams can self-serve. So it's about
Let me just stop you on that point. I mean,
yeah,
I totally agree with you, but isn't that cannibalizing your potential revenue stream if you help the client to self-serve?
that's the beauty of the commercial model, right?
Hmm. Or not. in the in that, I mean, to me, this is one of the fascinating things, and
Yeah.
I find this fascinating is that as you make legal services more efficient, you to some degree you then undermine the sales proposition of those who are providing services.
But we'll make it more efficient and pass those savings on to the client. And of course you're right. Overall, the cost of legal services overall will come down because that's what automation does. But introducing automation in the right way,
Hmm.
where it's responsible, and making sure that where there are people involved in the process, they're adding huge value. So the people involved in the process are lawyers who can exercise their judgment, understand the business, bring those two things together. That's what's needed in the market,
Hmm.
and so that's what we want to provide.
But just staying on that point, I mean, I guess that there's so much legal work to go around that is produced, that I guess even if you did set up a whole stream of self-serve applications inside a large company, there'd still be enough to easily feed Deloitte LMS and keep you going
Yeah.
busy.
Well, yeah, of course. It's a huge addressable market. I mean, every company pretty much has a legal team. Um, if it's got more than 50 people in it. And this is a proposition as well that's not just appropriate for massive corporations. The company I was talking to this morning is a couple of thousand people, and we absolutely have something that's going to work for them, and it'll work out more cost effective for them than going out and hiring people into their legal team.
And do you think that eventually we will get true price competition, at least in the sort of process focused end of legal services? With Elevate pitching this, and then Deloitte pitching this, and PwC going, all right, we can do better than that. And then this FTSE 100 company going, well, you're all pretty good, frankly. I like all of you, but you're 10% cheaper. I'll go with you.
At the end of the day, it's got to come down to the delivery capability, hasn't it?
Mm,
What's the quality of the work that you're providing? And to take your example earlier of the kind of the self-serve model, so if we're able to set up the procurement team for success so that they can deal with their own contracts, at some point something's going to change in the business, and that's going to need to be updated, and someone's going to need to keep an eye on that. Someone's going to make sure that the wheels don't come off at that point. So it doesn't stop there.
mm.
You've got to continue to manage that process. It's got to be an ongoing cycle. So it changes the nature of the work, because it's no more about just I've got a pile of contracts and I'm going to work through them and and not think about whether there's a better way. But it's got to
That's
be good for
true.
the health of the business overall. I mean, if you speed up the time to contract, you speed up the whole business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Deal velocity. It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, indeed, indeed. Well, last couple of questions. So in terms of the US, obviously you can't practice law in the US because of various restrictions, and everyone knows those very well. Let's not get into that. But just generally, the LMS group is UK and Europe. What can that group do in the US? Because I know there
Mm,
will be some LMS work happening in the US, won't there? That's been announced
yeah.
already. How will this group and the group in the US work together?
So the legal business services team in the US, I meet with them on a regular basis, and they will come and involve us in their pitches and vice versa. So we're very much one joined up team from that point of view. And the fact that we can practice law, they can't in the US, that kind of augments the proposition for them. They have some capabilities that augment the proposition for us. So we're really working together. I've been on quite a lot of late night calls because that team are mostly based on the West Coast out in the US. So if they involve me in one of their client pitches, then it tends to be late at night. So
Well, I
No
can
escape from that, is there ever?
no, well, I can empathise with that, having arranged an event in San Francisco. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So how would that work? So let's say there's a client in the US, they engage the US business services group to do non-regulated work. There's a little bit that actually probably would count as regulated legal services. Could they ping it to you,
Yeah.
even though you don't necessarily have New York qualified lawyers in London, or maybe you do? Could they do that?
Yeah, it depends on the nature of the work, depends on the negotiation mandate, but that's definitely what we're thinking. We haven't proved that concept yet, but we're constantly involved in pitches together, and I think it's at the Deloitte kind of global level,
Mm.
legal is growing dramatically, and we all need to make sure we're providing a consistent service, because most of our clients at the end of the day aren't just based in one jurisdiction.
Well, no, absolutely, and then the large
Mm,
companies are inherently global. But just on that last point, I mean, effectively, you could build a US legal team in the UK. You know, whether it was English lawyers who'd done the New York bar exam, for example, or had enough skill,
mm,
or perhaps even were admitted as
mm,
US lawyers. Um, and because you're a separate entity, because they're all, as everyone knows, the Big Four is broken up into lots of different regulated entities. You're not the same
mm.
entity as in America. You wouldn't be breaking any bar rules by providing US legal advice from the UK.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we're running through all of these scenarios at the moment,
Mm.
because obviously we've got lots of one of the great things about being at Deloitte is you've got lots of risk people, who can who can run through those scenarios with you. That specific one isn't one that we've had cause to put through the ringer yet, but it'll definitely happen.